Okay, today I'll be talking about euthanasia and explain how a physician-assisted suicide would be a beneficial legal option for those with a bad economic background. Okay, so imagine you come from a poor economic background and have been diagnosed with a terminal illness that has no cure. How many of you would like to be forced to live your last moments of life suffering through pain and agony in a hospital bed while placing an economic burden to your family? I'm sure most of you wouldn't like that, and well, the same case applies to Oregon citizen Caleb Hefner, who was diagnosed with terminal lung and bone cancer. After being diagnosed, he thought immediately of the horrid end to his father's life. He had tragically died of leukemia. Instead of being able to be around his family in his father's last few months of life, they were mopping up blood trying to manage this horrible disease. In the case of Hefner, he had to undergo the trauma of seeing his poor father die slowly, suffering from a painful illness that is not curable to this day. Having had the option of being euthanized at the last moment of his father's life would have allowed his father to die with peace and dignity. By definition, euthanasia is the act or practice of killing somebody who has an incurable illness or injury, or of assisting that person to die by means of lethal injection. Legalizing euthanasia is necessary because it gives the terminally ill patients or individuals in chronic severe pain the option of a peaceful and quick death to minimize suffering. There has been a lot of debate on the subject of euthanasia and assisted suicide and whether it is right or wrong. It is a very emotive topic and one which produces a lot of passion and feeling about the ethics and morals of such an issue. One thing to consider is that proper pain management will not alleviate all patients from suffering. People who oppose euthanasia often argue that proper pain management is enough to make the legalization of euthanasia unnecessary, but they do not take into consideration the other elements that make up suffering besides physical pain. Suffering includes physical pain as well as emotional and mental pain. Hefner says to his family, "If I were ever to become so ill that there was little hope for recovery, regardless of the pain, I would not want to be maintained by machines the rest of my life." Thinking back to his father's death, Hefner does not want to place any burden to his beloved family. Supporting a terminally ill family member can place a serious economic burden as well as an emotional hardship when watching the family member suffer. A health article from the Hospice Association of America, which was updated on November 2001, stated that the cost for a hospice daycare for a terminally ill patient is $666.52 for 24 hours, or $27.77 per hour. Though many of us would agree that life is valued over money, many Americans with bad economic backgrounds will not be able to afford it. However, if the patient decides to end their life with euthanasia, these family burdens can be avoided. But who makes the decision between ending life? The decision to end life is not to be made by doctors nor by family members. The decision is to be made only by the person who is suffering the agony. But what if the patient is not in a stable enough mental state to make a decision? Well, if euthanasia were to be legalized and accepted to society, a person can make a documented decision before their health deteriorates on whether or not they felt that euthanasia would be a path for them in case of extreme pain or poor health. One of the issues that is often debated is whether or not euthanasia is moral. Euthanasia opponents contend that human life is sacred no matter what the conditions surrounding it, and that suffering can be ennobling to the human spirit. If that were the case, how would one explain the development of medical treatments and hospitals to prolong human life and suppress pain? Suffering does not ennoble the human spirit. It creates burdens and pain. But of course, moral values cannot be measured because not everyone shares the same equal values. Others would argue that a euthanasia policy will devalue the human life. Euthanasia will not devalue the lives of the terminally ill. Rather, it will value the person they are as well as the opinions they have. One must understand that if euthanasia were to become legalized, it would not mean that the patient will be forced to end their life. It is simply just an option for those who feel that euthanasia is necessary or is the way to go. To sum it all up, euthanasia would give the terminally ill an option to choose whether they want to end their life sooner rather than later. In return, burdens among family members would be avoided and the patients would be able to die peacefully instead of living the last moments of life with pain. Right now, Oregon is the only state in America that does not stand by and watch individuals suffer. It is the only state in the U.S. where the option of assisted suicide is legal. Hedner stated that having the law available in Oregon gave him a huge sense of relief. If worse came to worse, there was always that other option. And knowing that, he essentially put those issues and last few hours and days aside, and he went on living. Hedner's hope is that none of you will have to go through the same experience. Legalizing physician-assisted suicide will ensure that you don't have to.